welcome our new pastor, Mitch Galloway, and his wife Carol. Burgers and hot dogs should be ready here shortly, and Pastor Mitch is going to give us the blessing.
Let's join in prayer. Gracious God, we do give you thanks for all the blessings of life that you have given us. We are reminded of them as we gather around these tables today. I pray that you will bless the food, that it will strengthen our bodies, and may our fellowship express the love that you have given us in Jesus Christ our Lord.
The first time I saw it was and I saw it just yesterday.
I hope you all had a lot to eat. I brought my notes. In every church that I've served, I've taken the opportunity to share with people some of the things that I use and some ways that are helpful for me and hopefully make you feel more comfortable as well. I shared some of that last week in the church service, but you'll see a little bit more today. My apologies to the leadership team because some of this is going to be a repeat for them. First of all, I want to thank those of you who were responsible for our dinner today. That was great. Thank you very much. Now Carol doesn't have to make supper. I lost my sight when I was 13 years old. I had a brain tumor, and the tumor had to be removed. And when they removed the tumor, it was attached to my optic nerve. So it took my optic nerve. So if you want to see what I see, now this is very dangerous to do to United Methodist right after dinner, but close your eyes. If you can, if you have contacts or glasses, don't do this, but lightly touch your eyes, and pretty soon you're going to see dots of light flashing back and forth. It's what's called memory in the brain. I cannot tell if the lights are on or off here. I don't know if the sun's shining unless I get through the window. But I can still see these little different colors, and I can still picture things that I remember seeing. But there's a lot of things out there today that weren't there when I was able to see. So the only way that I can get an idea of what they're like is for somebody to make something and put it in my hand, and then I can get a better idea. Being able to see for 13 years, I think is an advantage. I was able to know what colors look like. I'm pretty good with remembering directions and going someplace and being able to find myself back again. And just things, simple things that you don't think of when you can see. I have friends that have been totally blind, and I remember one time on a mobility course, they had the hardest time picturing the relationship between the street, the curb, the grass, and the sidewalk. They just couldn't get that all together. And I was able to picture that right away. So it was an advantage. I was in the end of my 7th grade year, and in the 8th and 9th grade, I was tutored at home. Because of the tumor, I wasn't able to go back to school, and they said, well, we'll teach you at home. And I didn't like that way of learning because I was the only one in the classroom, and Mom was only one room away. I didn't know what I was talking about. She knew it. Fortunately, I only had 4 hours of class time a week. 1 hour of math, history, 1 of science. Math, history, science, and English. Those are my 4 courses for those 2 years. Then when I went to the 10th grade, I said I wanted to go back to school. Well, now remember, this is before the Americans with Disabilities Act, 1967, I guess is when I went back, or 67. I lost my sight in 1965. Excuse me. This April 29th, it's been 50 years. So I'm learning how to live without it. But it's something you adjust to every day. When I told them I wanted to go back to school, they said, well, send you to Philadelphia to the Overbrook School for the Blind. I said, I don't want to go there. I want to go to public school. That's where my twin brother went to school. That's where my friends went to school. And that's where I wanted to go to school. And they said, well, we never had a blind, they never had a blind student before. So the county and everybody, they got all these arguments together as to why I should go back to school. And took it to the superintendent, who my family knew, and said, Mitch would like to come back to school. He said, let him come. So I went back to school. That was my fight to get back into public school. I had to do everything that everyone else did except physical education. I even had to take driver's education. It was a state mandate at the time. I had to take driver's education. The teacher was an older gentleman, and he would give me when it came time for the test, he'd give me a question. He'd answer the question. And then I'd say, Mr. Hoyt, you just answered the question. He said, you're not going to need this stuff anyways. And unfortunately, he wouldn't take me out for student driving, but I didn't learn a lot about what it is to drive. So I graduated from York Central High School, and then went on to Lebanon Valley College, where I received my degree in sociology. And from there, I was going to be a rehabilitation teacher for the blind. But I sent out resumes and nobody wanted a rehabilitation teacher for the blind. So I came home at Easter and I didn't know what I was going to do. My pastor's wife at the time asked what I was going to do after college, and I said, I don't know, I can't get a job. She said, well, why don't you direct Bethlehem Farm? Some of you may remember Bethlehem Farm. It was an inner city camp sponsored by the Central Pennsylvania Conference at the time. And it was out in 7 valleys. We pick up children in the morning and take them out, give them breakfast, give them lunch, take them home at night. And they were from the poorest parts of the city. So I directed the camp for 2 summers. First summer, I had some young people through a program called Summer of Service. And the conference would pay half of the cost of having a student come to a camp or to a church or to some kind of a mission setting. And they would pay them to work. It's kind of a way to introduce them to different kinds of missions. Well, from Chambersburg, there came a young lady who I had not met before, but for 2 years I became her boss. Carol came down from Chambersburg. She lived with different people in the York area. She was there actually for 3 years, 3 summers. I just worked there for 2 summers, and the 3rd summer I was a Youth and Children's Director and Visitation Pastor at Messiah United Methodist Church. She had no idea when we first met that she was ever going to end up being a pastor's wife. She ran away from me for stop making faces. She ran away for a year, and then she came back the 2nd year, and she slowed down a little bit. And we tell everybody the story, and it's actually a true story. For my Eagle Scout project, I helped the Northeast Ecology Club build a braille trail out in the Amicksville area. And part of the trail was you hold onto a rope, you follow around, and you could see different things. And I told the counselors, to go ahead, hold the rope and follow the rope, but I wanted to walk with her. So I said, hey, how about you take it by arm and I'll lead you. You don't need to take a hold of the rope. I know my way around here. Well, what I forgot was at one point there was a tree that came out over the trail. If you held the rope, you went around it. If you didn't, you walked into it. Guess who walked into it? After that, she started holding my hand and we started going together. In 1977, then we were married. In June, and 1 week after our wedding, we headed to Dayton, Ohio, where I spent 3 years at the seminary. And she worked at a credit union, federal credit union, teachers credit union. Because she tells everybody she got her PhD degree, putting hubby through degree, and she really did. So we spent 3 years out there, and then we came back to the York area, or excuse me, back to Pennsylvania. And our first church was in Chambersburg. So we've been in Chambersburg for 6 years, Belleville for 8 years, Dallastown for 8 years, York for 13 years, and we want to be here for lots of years. So we'll wait and see what the Lord brings for us there. When we came back, Carol was pregnant, so she gave birth to our first child. With our picture of our family is up front here. Where do you have that? Oh, it's to my right. Okay. That's our family. We have a daughter, Kimberly. You will see her from time to time. She lives in Annville. She was married 2 years ago. And the gentleman she married had 2 children. A little boy, Tucker. Tucker's now 12. and Kelsey's now 15. And then we also have a son, and he was married, probably 5 years ago now or something like that, quite a few. They just had a baby. He was 11 months old yesterday. His name was Logan. You will see him, and you will hear him. He likes to help Grandpa preach when he's here. So they plan to come once in a while to be part of the service, and I look forward to that to have them come. We get to babysit him every Monday and Wednesday, and it's our joy to be able to do that. I get to be with him all day Monday because that's my day off, and she gets to be with him all day on Wednesday. So those are our family, and Carol's family continued to live in Chambersburg. My family lived here in York. I've got a twin brother. He lives in East York. I've got a younger brother, and he lives in Manchester. And my father's still living. My mother died 14 years ago. So it kind of catches you up a little bit as to where we have been. Over the years, being a person who is blind, life has changed quite a bit. I tell everybody, there's no better time, well, there's no good time to be blind, but there's no better time to be blind than today with all the technology. And that's what I want to show you just very quickly. Some of the things that I use. This is, you see me read my Bible. This is the books of Matthew and Mark. The rest of the Bible is 17 volumes like this. So Braille takes up a lot of space. If you come to my office, you'll see it takes up about 2 shelves of space. The hymnal is 8 volumes like this, or 7 volumes like this. Okay? So Braille does take up a lot of space. I learned Braille the first year after I got home from the hospital. It took me about a year, not so much to remember the dots, but to get the feeling in my fingers. Because if you feel this, it'll feel like, well, just like sandpaper to you. But after a while, your fingers get to be able to distinguish the patterns. And Braille is made up of 6 different dots, and depending upon the way they're arranged, it either makes a letter, a word, or part of a word. I don't write everything out like you do. Most of my words have contractions in them. For some of you who are my age, you know what shorthand is, or I've heard of it anyway. Kids today say, what's that? But it's kind of like shorthand, and as I said, it took me a year to learn that. My teacher was also blind, and she was a very, very ambitious lady. And, excuse me, haven't quite gotten rid of all that cold. So I learned Braille, and believe me, I don't know what I'd do without it. So I really enjoy it. I'm not a fast Braille reader. My friends who have been blind all their lives, they can go and read probably as fast as you can. I cannot do that. Most of my reading I have memorized. Braille has also changed over the years. I better give that to you. Where are we putting that? Okay. When I first went blind, I used to stylus and slate. It was and I still use that from time to time. It was a piece of metal, and I would use an awl and punch down into that piece of metal, and that would form my letters for me. The thing is, when you're punching down, the dots are not popping up. So you learn Braille forwards, and then you learn Braille backwards, so you can write it with a stylus and slate. And that's what I use all through my school years, even through seminary. I use my stylus and slate. I found out later on, my brother married a girl that was in my class, and she was in my English class in high school, and she said the kids used to always like when they took true-false tests because they would listen. And they finally learned that if I hit it 3 times, that was an F. I thought if I had done that, I'd have really had a lot of fun. But Braille itself hasn't changed a whole lot. It has, in the recent, about the recent year, they've come up with some different ideas about Braille. Some things that were contractions for me will no longer be contractions, but that doesn't bother me. The thing that's changed most is today. Okay. see the dots. And as I turn the wheel, it'll go to the next line or the next word. I read that, turn the wheel, goes to the next line of the word. So this, what used to 17 volumes of this, I can hold many Bibles in this machine. This is like a personal data assistant. I can do word processing on it. You'll see me use it in most of the meetings that we have, committee meetings. I'll bring this with me. If I don't want to read it in Braille, I can listen to it. Sure I can. Okay. Let's try this. Okay. All right, now let's come on. That's wrong because the battery went dead, so it... Okay? So that's the voice that I hear when I use this machine. That's also the voice that I hear when I use my computer. Up in my office, I have a computer, and it has a program in it called JAWS, Job Access with Speech, and it speaks to me. Now, it doesn't describe pictures, but any of the not any, most of the Microsoft programs that you use, like Word or Excel or Access, I can use those programs because of the speech synthesis that I have. It will allow me to read my email. So if you want to send me an email, I can read it. If I want to get on the internet, I can go onto the internet and it'll tell me, like if I come to a link, it'll say link, and I know, okay, if I hit that, then I can go to a link. I'd say 90% of my sermon preparation today is done on the internet. And also, most of my reading today is done on the internet because otherwise I have to scan everything. I have a scanner on my desk, and I do scan like mail. It does take me a little longer to do things than it takes you. I think I shared with the leadership committee at one point that one day I had 8 pieces of mail. All I wanted to do was identify the mail. I didn't want to read it, I just wanted to know what it was. Well, you could probably flip through 8 pieces of mail in how many seconds, right? Well, for me, I had to take the piece of paper, lay it on the scanner, hit the button for it to scan. It took time to scan, then it took time to recognize it, then it took time to read it. It took me 14 minutes to get through those 8 pieces of mail, just to recognize them. So it does take me longer to do things, but I have found that usually there's a way around whatever I want to do. So that is Braille. I have a Braille ruler. I used to have a Braille watch, but now my phone or my clock is on my phone, so I don't need the Braille watch anymore. Excuse me. One of the other advances that has come along is advances in communications. When I first went blind, if I wanted to read, I had to order a book from the Library of Congress for the Blind. All across the United States, there are libraries for the blind. And they would send me a list every month of books that were available, and I'd check off the book, and they would send it to me. When they had it, I had to wait, sometimes a year, before they sent me the book that I wanted. But while I was waiting, they'd send me whatever books they thought I'd like to read. And at that time, they were on records. Okay, I know some of you know what records are. They were the big records, and I would listen to them. Had a big record player, about that long. That thing stood about that high when the lid was up, and I would listen to my books. Well, sometimes they sent books that weren't really that appropriate for a 13-year-old. At least my mother thought so. Some of those westerns could get a little racy, and she would come in the room and stomp her foot on the floor, and the needle would go shoot. I told her she was destroying federal property. Later on, they came out with this wonderful thing called a cassette recorder, and the next thing you know, everything became available on cassettes. And that lasted until probably about 5 years ago, I think it's been now. And then they started sending things out digitally on a little cartridge. and the whole book was on one cartridge. So you didn't get a whole container full of different cassettes. Now, today, I download my books right off of the internet. And today, my reader is in my pocket. The books are downloaded to my cell phone. This is a regular iPhone, just like anyone else like you would use, except I use a program in it called VoiceOver, which is in your cell phones as well, if you have an Apple phone. And let me see if I can get, where do we put the Bluetooth? Okay. See if I can get it to
Page 1 of 5. Adjust dock.
yeah, there we go.
5 apps.
Okay.
Safari. Messages. Calendar. Sunday. Apple List. Access no. 150. Object recognition code. Page 1 of 5. Dock. Phone. Settings. Music. Bible. Music.
So instead of pointing to different things, I use my fingers. If I swipe it one way, it'll like turn the page. Or if I go up and down, I can use my word, character, however I want to read it. This machine right here now takes the place of what used to take me 7 different devices. Okay. It is a light detector. I really appreciate whoever built the office upstairs, put in an automatic light detector, so I don't even have to worry about turning the lights on or off anymore. If I did have to do that, I'd use my light detector.
Light detector. Navigation folder.
Let that one.
Navigation. Heading. Money messages. Money reader. App Store. Line KNFB reader. Money reader. Light detector. Bookhouse folder. Light detector. Light detector.
If the light's are on, the tone is high. When it gets darker, the tone gets lower.
Wait.
Okay? And it drives everybody else crazy.
77%.
There we go.
Light detector. App Store.
So a light detector is one of the things devices that I used to have. Another thing is a money identifier. I can now take a bill, hold it up in front of the phone, and it'll say $1, $5, $10. If it goes any higher than $20, I've got somebody else's wallet. But that was another device that I had. If I wanted to read a book, I had to have either a cassette recorder or a record player. Today, I read my books with this device, and I download them right off the internet from the Library for the Blind. Instead of waiting sometimes for a year, I can download them now in about 15 to 20 seconds, depending upon the size of the book, and then I can listen to it.
Settings. Calendar. Object recognition folder. 5 app. Navigation folder. 8 blindness resources. KNFB reader. Money reader. Light detector. Bookhouse folder. 5 apps. Book app, iBooks, Kindle, Audible, Bard Mobile, Voice Dream Line, Bard Mobile.
Okay, this is a book, Carol, and I've been listening.
Bard Mobile, My FBI, Bringing Down the Mafia, Investigating Bill Clinton, Selected. Speed, bookshelf, tab, speed, not speed, button, fast forward, button, play, button.
And has huge respect for her way of thinking,
This is
says
a book
Nancy
about
Lees. But she would never demand or presume to think she was
that's
giving
read by a human
advice.
voice. So,
The next favorite question from the media was whether Barbara Bullock
Stop.
all right. So that would be the third device that I would have needed to have. Another device that's on here, and it just came out last year, which is, to me is a miracle. I can now take this phone, take a picture of a page, and it will read the page to me. Okay? So instead of having a scanner on my desk now, if I want to, I can scan the page with my cell phone. And then I'm able to either save that or send it to my computer or whatever I wish to do with it, get rid of it or whatever. It is remarkable. It's very, very accurate. My first screen reader was back in 1990, my first scanner was in 1990. It took 5 minutes from the time I put the page on the scanner till the time that it started reading. 5 minutes each page. So I'd scan 12 pages, go away for an hour, come back, read those 12 pages, then you'd scan the next 12 pages. Took a lot of time. Today, this thing will translate in about 3 seconds. The first ones that came out, I've heard prices of anywhere from $35,000 to $65,000 for the first readers. In 1986, I was able to see one of them up at State College. They had it in the library at Penn State. And I wouldn't have given you a nickel for the thing because it was very hard to understand and it was very, very big. But then they came out with this thing called desktop processing, and people started buying scanners, and it brought the price down. So eventually, it got down to the point where persons who were blind were able to afford the scanners, and then they came up with programs that would scan the material and read it back to us. So this particular program that I have now on here, without the cost of the phone, was $99 instead of $65,000. Devices for the blind are very expensive. This device, the PackMate that I have here, if you were going to go out and buy that today, is somewhere around $4,500. So, it's great that things are out there, but a lot of people cannot use them. The unemployment rate amongst the blindness community is very high. So, most of them have to depend upon government agencies to help purchase the different kind of devices. Let's see. I think I showed you that. Again, my phone, to me, it goes with me everywhere, and I really, really do appreciate it. Also, I use a cane. You've seen me with my cane. This is a collapsible one, and I went to rehab school for 15 weeks out in Pittsburgh and learned how to use my cane. And I am able to travel by myself, and have traveled by myself, like in Dayton, Ohio, and not too much in New York, other than you get from my house to my office, which is just across the street. So I do use a cane. However, when I'm with you, I would prefer to use human guide, because if I use a cane, I have to concentrate too much on what I'm doing. If I go human guide, I can simply follow where you're going. Carol will demonstrate that. Didn't want that. Okay. I simply take a hold of your right arm, and she leads me this way, and I pray that there's no trees hanging out. If we get to a tight area, she puts her arm behind her, and I get right behind her. And that way we can get through tight spaces. She doesn't have to tell me I'm going right or left. I simply follow her arm. Now, I've followed that arm for 40 years now, so I get to know the way she turns and things like that. Pretty good. If you come to a door, it's usually helpful if you say like pull right or push right or pull left. That way I know which way to hold my hand out and get the door. If you come to a step, you step down and you wait until I find the step, because I still have to find it. You can't keep going or I'm going to fall on my face because I've got a hold of you and I haven't found the step yet. So it is good if you stop, or if you step off the curb. That way I know where the curb is. So that's the way that I will travel with you most of the time. I may have my cane with me, but as we're traveling, if we're going to have any kind of conversation, it's better if I go human guide with you. And the thing to remember is, be relaxed. I walk with people who hold their arms down like that. That doesn't help me at all because you're too stiff. I want you to be relaxed, to use your hands or whatever. I do not squeeze your arm tightly. Sometimes I've taken a hold of people's arms and they don't even know that I have a hold of them yet. Because the lighter I feel things, the more I can detect what Carol is doing or the person I'm walking with is doing. So that's called human guide. And that is the way that I will travel with you as we are traveling. If we're going to get to a chair, best thing to do is stand in front of the chair and put my hand on the back of the chair, and then I know where to sit down. we come to the car. I like opening or closing the door myself so that I know where it's at. And the hardest thing is getting out because they put those handles at different places in different cars. So I have to search for them sometimes. I've been asked, how much help should you give me? That depends. I can't tell you you should never help me, but I will tell you that if I think I can do it myself, I will. All right? And please do not be offended if I say to you, that's okay, I can do it myself. Okay? Because I need to do that. If I depended upon you to do everything, I wouldn't know what skills God has given me and the abilities that I still have. So I do try to do things by myself, but there are times when I really do appreciate your assistance in getting around or helping me to find something or read something. That is very, very helpful. People say, you know, what do you do at home? Carol can answer that question if she'd like. She'll answer any of your questions too. She answers the ones that I can't answer. So if you have questions, you can ask her too. But around the house, try not to be too much different than any other man that is able to see. Now, of course, Carol has to do all the driving. I'm the navigator. So when we go somewhere, I usually, now with the cell phone, I just say, Siri, get us to such and such a place. And it tells me how to get there. But she does all of the driving. Yep. And at home, she does all the cooking. I can cook. She says I'm a religious cook because everything I make either comes out of burnt offering or a sacrifice. But I can cook if I have to. And thank God for microwave ovens and leftovers. And so I do cook. I do things around the house that if there's repairs that need to be made and I feel that I can make them, I'll do that. If there's things that need to be done, she does the laundry because I just throw it all in one time and it out. So she does the laundry, but I do the dishes. I wash them, she dries them. Okay? I do, most of the time, do the vacuuming because she doesn't like me do the dusting because I knock everything over. So I can do the vacuuming and she does dusting. So we try to do, I try to do as much as I possibly can. And there are things that I'm limited that I cannot do that I have to ask other people to help out with, or things that she has to do that ordinarily a wife would not have to do. She is also helps me when it comes to like reading some things. She was my reader in seminary and learned a lot of big words. And she did a lot of reading at that time. Not so much anymore because I can do it myself. If I can do it myself, I prefer to do it that way. As far as hobbies go, you see some of what I've done up front here with wood carving. I've been carving since about 1974, and I really, really do enjoy it. I usually have a model that I work with. Friends will cut out a blank, and which is simply cut out by a bandsaw. And then I go from there. I take off the wood that's supposed to be taken off. Sometimes that's not supposed to be taken off. And that's how I do my carving. So if any of you like fooling around with a bandsaw, let me know. I got a lot of work for you. I haven't been able to do a lot of carving this year, but I do still enjoy doing it. And if anyone's interested, hopefully maybe down the line we can have a carving class and show you how to do that. I do belong to the New York Carvers and have been part of them since they started way back in 1974. Let's see, what else? Pardon? Oh, I do some gardening. We're not going to do as much here as what we did in York. We re-landscaped the whole yard that we had, which was pretty sizable. But we're finding that the ground is lower here in Winterstown, so it's harder to get back up. So. I don't know just how much gardening we'll do in the ground, but I also enjoy water gardening. And if you go by the house now, you'll see that we've started to build a water pond. I don't dig it into the ground, I build it up so that I can reach out and touch the plants. I like water gardening because you don't get any weeds. So I don't have to worry about weeds. And people said to me, you know, well, how do you do gardening? How do you know what's a weed? Well, it was big, tall, and green in our garden. It was a weed, so it got pulled. Okay? Otherwise, I tell everybody I go out after dark, and I really do, and do gardening after dark. And if they say, well, you missed one, I say, well, no, it was dark. When we lived in the city, people would come by after it got dark, and they'd say, you know, it's dark out. And yeah. It didn't bother me. Carol picks out the plants, she does the designing of the garden, and I dig the holes. That's my job. And we both do weeding together. And she can tell you that sometimes I come in with things that are not weeds. She says the most dangerous thing for me is to put one of those weed whackers in my hands. Don't do it. So, there again, it's something that we like to do together. And we like to travel together. We like traveling to historic sites, and we like traveling to gardens. Again, because I can remember what flowers look like. And she describes them to me, and sometimes I can feel them. And then I can get in my mind how I would, what I would do with them if they were in my garden. So Longwood Gardens is a place that we like to go to quite often throughout the year and enjoy those things. When our children were little one time, we went down to National Zoo in Washington, D.C. And I'll never forget, a gentleman came up to me and he said, "Why did you come here?" And I said, well, why? And he said, "Well, you can't see anything here." I said, "Because my family's here. Because my wife was there, my children were there, and I didn't want to miss those experiences." And I can't say to Carol, well, we can't do that, if it is something indeed we can do. She still hasn't taught me how to play tennis yet, but most things we do together. We like to travel together, and like I said, we like to go to gardens like that. So I'm going to stop now and ask you what questions you have. Remember, if I don't have them, Carol does. If you want to ask her questions about what it's like to live with a person who is totally blind, she can answer those questions for you as well. We have been married for 38 years, so she's learned a few things over those years. And again, has been, well, I tell everybody, she's been my eyes to the world for 40 years. And that's the way I've seen the world. So, what questions do you have? I want to see who's the first one to raise your hand. You gotta have questions.
Go ahead, Molly.
I'm not Molly.
Oh, Iris, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's your favorite color?
I didn't hear the question. What's my favorite color? Blue. I like blue. Yep, that's my favorite color. And, you know, it's funny because I can picture, like, blue, green, red, yellow, but somebody was like, it's chartreuse. Huh? That's burgundy. What? And so then Carol tries to describe the color to me. And then I realize how hard it is for my friends that have never seen to get any concept of what a color is. But you know, after a while, colors don't really mean much to me anymore. But I really do like the color blue.
Does Carol have to lay your clothes out so you know what you have on? I still do it for Gabe.
Yeah, sometimes she should have, yes. She will pick out the tie that I'm supposed to wear because I have so many of them. And I can't remember what, they kind of all feel the same. So I don't remember what they look like. So she'll pick out the tie. Sometimes she'll pick out a shirt for me to wear. But usually I pick things out myself. Now when she does the laundry, she'll put all of my white shirts on a plastic hanger. Okay? So that I know if it's a plastic hanger, it's a white shirt. Or the round ones, yeah, the round plastic hangers. I know that that's my white shirt. My suits, I keep my suit coat and my pants together. And then I'll usually put the tie on there too, so I know if she doesn't get me a tie, that tie will go with it. But I have sometimes had funny combinations that people have said, When I was in college, my roommate used to take my socks and mess them all up. And he'd wait till I got to class and say, Galloway, you got on one red sock and one blue one. I said, yeah, I got another pair just like it. But she will tell you that even, where were we a couple weeks ago when I had the wrong shoes on? Okay. No, we were
Somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah, we were out somewhere and we got home and she said, you know you have 2 different shoes on. No. So sometimes she does lay them out for me, but usually I get them out myself. Other questions?
How can you tell if she's mad at you? You can't see her facial expressions.
That's a good question. She usually lets me know. I can tell by the tone of her voice what's going on. But it is interesting that she'll say to me sometimes when we go home from church or something like that, she'll say about people making, if I say something and they've made a certain face, you know, or if they look sad or something like that, she'll tell me, and because sometimes I miss those things, I can't pick them up, so she will tell me about those. But of course, she doesn't get mad at me very often. Right.
Not too often. Moving is not the best thing for me.
Especially in our parsonage now, boxes keep popping up all over the place where I never expect them to be.
Put that with the 11-month-old toys, and you've got to, he does the shuffle a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. But we do manage. And one of the best things that I find is keeping a good sense of humor. It's really, really important. People say, what did you lose? What do you miss most? What would you want to see most if you were able to see? And I tell them, if that time ever comes, the first thing I want to see is a picture of her coming down the aisle on our wedding. And then after that, I want to see every picture we can get of our kids and of my grandkids. That's what I want to see. And who knows, that day may come. You never know. The technology is really getting to the point now where they even have cars that drive themselves. So look at it. I trust you, I just don't trust you. That's the problem. Well, one thing that persons who have any disability have is the loss of independence and convenience. I can't always do things when I want to do them. The computer has cut that down considerably. If I had to, I could order just about anything I wanted on the computer. So that has cut that inconvenience down quite a bit. But there's still times when I would like to go see something and it's not convenient for Carol to go at that time. So I wait until it's convenient. Or I may want to go see something that she's not really all that interested in. Lowe's is not her favorite store to go to, or Home Depot.
Unless I'm decorating.
Unless she's decorating, yes, she's decorating, we're there all the time. Independence and convenience are the two things that you lose. But today, as I said, today with the technology, a lot of that has been taken away. Okay. Any other questions? Well, I don't want to keep you any longer because the day is so beautiful and I want to get outside. But if you have questions, please, please don't hesitate to ask me or to ask Carol. When you speak to, if you have a question that I can answer, what do you want to eat? You don't need to ask her, what does he want to eat? That happens more times than you would think. And again, people that disguise their voices, say, you know, do you know who this is? You know my answer. Well, if you don't know, I don't know either. I'm not going to play that game. And she'll let them know quite up front that, you know, I don't like that. And, so those are some of the things that help me. And also, you're introducing yourself. When you talk to me and you introduce yourself. And also, and I have noticed that everyone here has done that. You look at me. When I talk to you, I look at you. But I've talked to people that because they think I can't see, they'll talk to me, but they'll be turned the other way, to the side. And to me, that's just rude. I look at you, you should look at me when we talk. People say, well, why do you stay behind the pulpit? Well, because if I get away from the pulpit or something to center myself, I tend to turn, and then I go home and Carol said, do you know you were talking to the wall? I actually did a wedding one time where I got to tell the people to sit down, they stood through the whole ceremony. So those are things that I remember. And being in ministry sometimes can have its funny moments as well. And let's see. I think I told the contemporary service, and maybe it was the second service, I'm not sure. But you are quite unique because there has never ever been, and is not now, another pastor who's totally blind that has served churches in the area. So that way, I know that you have to have questions because you've never experienced that before. So you've got to have questions. And I'm not afraid to answer any of them for you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the beautiful day. And again, thank you for those who put this all together and made it possible.